Hey, everybody, welcome back to Author Eke. Today I have John Stamp, who has written, I believe, 7 novels. He has a very interesting background, and I have to tell him how I ran into some of these NCSI guys in, uh, in Allen, Texas, which was unusual. But so, yeah, go ahead, John. Tell us about yourself.
Oh, first off, thanks for having me, and happy Veterans Day, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think I wrote my first novel when I was in fifth grade and failed math class while I hand wrote about 55 pages of an awful like alien abduction buddy comedy, I guess,
uh,
and spent the next 30 years walking around with a notebook in my hand, thinking that I could figure out how to do this. And then 36 years old, I finally finish grad school, and all the time that I had in grad school that I was working in writing, I kind of plugged out of my day. So I got done. I was like, hey, I got an outline here. I'm gonna just use that time to get 500 words a day, and boom. I like 8 months later, I had a manuscript done, and
wow.
it's like I was like, that was fun. I think I'm gonna do it again, and I did it another 7 times. Well, eight, because I
Dang.
got one sitting in the can that I'm working on right now. So
Well, I'll tell you, you don't have to write a manual or write a little short story to fail math,
that's
because I
right.
did, but I didn't write anything.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
at least you can do one of them.
yeah, yeah. Well, I made it through college by taking all statistics courses.
Oh
I think
wow,
by high school I learned that me and math were never going to get along,
yeah,
and so in college is like, what's statistics? That seems easy. I'll
yeah,
just
I
do
can do
that.
that. Yeah, what's 2/3, or
That's
how many
right.
people
That's
did that?
right.
You know? So all right, well, so tell us about your newest book. Is it? Or do you have a series? Is so tell us about them.
Yeah, I've always, just I the first one I had an idea for like kind of blending a police procedural and kind of a horror novel,
Mm-hmm.
and never had any thoughts of doing a series. I just that first one, you're just like, I wonder if I can do this,
Right.
and then you kind of either really like the characters you create, or you're like, I don't see where that one's gonna go. Um, so I haven't really focused on series, but there have been two of different arcs in my books that police procedural paranormal side, the Shattered Circle, has turned into two, and I have an idea for a third, following Jackson Cole as he kind of unfortunately gets wrapped up in supernatural weirdness over and over
Mm-hmm.
and over again, and despite the fact he has no interest in it whatsoever. So
Right.
and then I actually had a couple characters pop so much in my book spoilers, that followed narcotics unit throughout Charleston, that kind of got the tables flipped on him and started being hunted down by an international arms smuggling conglomerate. And the bad guy that popped in that book, she was so awesome to write that I had to do another one, just to write her again, because just she was so psycho that I was like, yeah, I need more of that. She's nuts. So I never really focused on series, but the my newest book, I guess the newest one that was published, Blood Red Ivory, I did create, purposely created a character in an NCIS special agent Tyrone Benhoff, and with the intent of doing at least a 3 or 4 book arc with him, just because the character I kind of amalgamated
Mm-hmm.
every all the funnest people I've worked with over the last 20 years in law enforcement, through the working for the city of Charleston, through the FBI, through
Mm-hmm.
the NCIS, and then on later to be an instructor. Just took the best parts of the most fun, not necessarily the best investigators, but the most fun
Right.
investigators,
Oh yeah.
and just kind of threw him into Ty. So he's like the Antichrist if you ask any supervisor in the federal government. But I think I summed it up to one editor at one point that he's much more John McClane than Marion Cobretti, and I
Uh-huh.
just because of the best movies all were over with by the time 1990 came around. So
Yes.
pitching
They're all
Stallone
repeats.
versus
Yeah.
Stallone versus
Yeah.
Die Hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dude can't take anything serious. He can't take any. He he hates authority. All the best attributes that we liked from John McClane. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes down to it, he just figures out how to do it. He doesn't. he's not like John Wick. He doesn't have great tactics. He doesn't
Right.
have all that great at training. He just kind of
Right.
figures it out as he goes. So
Mhm.
that one, I've got a second one done that I'm kind of figuring out what to do with right now in Overmatch. That kind of takes Ty out of that initial adventure in Africa and throws him into Indonesia in a completely separate adventure.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then seeing where his character goes and seeing where the people around him goes around that. So there's probably 2 more in that series before I got to figure out if I'm gonna Jack Reacher that dude and write like 50 books with him, or
Right.
kind of let him arc out. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm doing the same for my third book. I built the team in the first 2, and the team is in the third. But I introduced a character in the second, and I'm like, man, she's tough. She's got some unique capabilities and qualifications. So I said, I'm going to make her more of the prominent figure character in my new book. So I think she can bring a lot to it. And it's kind of a play on her profession versus a CIA agent. But now you have a very extensive law enforcement background, so you're able to really, put in things that you've son or did or done or something, right?
You kind of write what you know, right? It's I started out as a police officer in Charleston, South Carolina, working patrol, and then moving on to being a detective. And then from there, I tell people that I saw too many movies and had to be a Fed. So it was after 9/11, and everybody's ramping up, and so one day, the supervisor hits you the wrong way or something hits you the wrong way, and suddenly you're on USA Jobs, and FBI and NCIS are both taking applications. I was like, I'll put in for both of them.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So
excellent.
I went to FBI for about 4 years, moved over to NCIS. My wife and I at the time had no kids and had kind of a travel bug. Mm-hmm. And so I'm talking to friends that had left the police department for both agencies. And both were fun. But we just, at some point we're just like, if we go to NCIS, we can go live all over the world. And we're like, let's do it. So I just moved over there, and I did get to travel. I had a great time traveling with them for a period of time. And then, like life happens, you suddenly got a kid and you're like, do I want to move this kid every 2-3 years, or do I want to put down roots? And we decided to put down roots. So I moved on from that too.
I had wanted to check out what driving Uber was like. So I was an Uber driver for a bit, and I picked up somebody here in town, a gentleman. He dressed kind of tactical, right? And I know a gun case when I see it. I understand all that. I was, being in the Army. So we're driving. I'm going. So we start talking. He was in the Marines. I was in the Army, and so we get along. So I said, so what do you guys? I said, I work for NCIS. I'm in a SWAT team, and we actually using the church here as a scenario for breaching. He said the whole team came up, I think, from New Orleans, and man, what a conversation! I was like, you don't think things happen in your town like that, but it was, it was very cool. It was interesting talking to him.
Yeah, that React team, they started after I left. It's and it's like, oh man, like it just so much fun. Even if you don't get many call outs, it'd still just be so much fun to run that stuff. And the training is the best part. You get to go everywhere. And like a buddy of mine on that team got to rappel from the screen and the where the Cowboys play. What's that? The
AT&T.
AT&T, yeah, he got the rappel down from the screen but the same team, the NCIS React team. So yeah, they get to go play in all the different places. Got a pretty good budget for the tactical fashion show and the and all the fun training. So
man, all I had to do was a helicopter and a cliff. So that's pretty cool.
It's like that
off of TV.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, what'd you do today? I'll watch a little TV. No big deal.
Yeah, just swinging across it.
So
yeah, no,
so do you,
I never. No, sorry, I never went the SWAT side. I was a negotiator. I thought that was a blast. And
heck
and I remember at one point an EOD guy was like, you should come join the EOD team. I'm like, I don't do bombs. It's fine.
Yeah.
There's just that was an absolute no.
Yeah. I'll talk to somebody.
Yeah, I'll talk to crazy people. I don't need to sit next to a bomb put together by a meth head in his basement.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, so that's kind of cool you brought that up. So in the book that I'm writing, part of a character, the reason why she loathes Russia is because of the incident in October in the theater where the Russians killed all the people in the theater by gassing them, right? Then that Chechen terrorist attack.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, she's one of the kids Russians that got out. But yeah, it kills I mean, I did a lot of research on things. It's wild, and she had
what a
so
great
she has
backstory.
a little vengeance. Yeah, so she has a little she's a little PO'd.
Yeah, and that's I guess people look at things differently in all the different cultures, but that's a stark negotiation tactics right there.
Yeah,
but I mean, at the same time, they had that school in Chechnya where they were never going to win. What they were all standing on pressure plates, and regardless of how much time they gave them or how much they tried to placate them, they were never going to win. So I guess.
Right.
It's a hard one to come back from. So I can see, let's try and put them to sleep this time. Maybe they won't set off a bunch of bombs.
Oh, no, that's too much.
That's a heavy dose.
Sleep forever.
Whoops.
That was terrible.
So good backstory. That's a great backstory for a character.
Yeah, it's I don't know where you come up with this stuff half the time. My wife's like, where do you come up with this stuff? I don't know. I was a product of the 70s. I have no idea.
That's right.
So do you write, like you have a regimen of writing, or do you write full time now?
No, I still got the 9 to 5. I've still got the 9 to 5 for hopefully, a little bit longer. I'd love to transition to the full-time writer gig, but the economics of that and having 2 small kids at home are
starve to death.
Complicated. Yeah. I'd have to at the same time become a prepper and be able to grow my own food and make my own clothes.
You would see me walk around town with a little red wagon with a computer doing TikTok videos.
That's right. That might work. Worse things have been tried and gotten people millions of followers.
I may have to try that.
Yeah. Hey, I can't bring myself to TikTok. I just, I've tried before and I'm like, man, I just the idea of how slimy that, I mean, the social media platforms are so slimy, but that one's so outwardly just stealing information for.
I put stuff out there just to, like, I'll take nuggets. I call them a nugget. A little piece of this. I just put it out there to drive traffic. To this, but mainly, Twitter, Facebook, stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah. That's I'll do those, and it's like, oh man. But to your question about the regimen, I kind of, when I first started it was kind of because I finished grad school. I mean, I've always wanted to be the writer, like ever since I saw Tom Clancy, dressed out in a cool fighter suit and bomb jacket. I'm like, hey man, that's what authors get to do. I'm going to do that for a living, and it somehow didn't work out. But no, I got done with grad school, and I would always go into work about 2 hours early to get my research and my writing done for school. And when school was done, I was still waking up. I was still in that zone. I'd spent 2 years every day doing that.
Oh wow!
And so I'm just like, hey, I got this time anyway, and I can't sleep, so I just finished up, but tightened up an outline I'd been working on, and just kept going into work early with my laptop, and I just knock out the goal of 500 words. And then, 6-8 months later, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I got about 75,000 words of a story here. I was like, it worked.
Oh yeah.
So
do you write for, when you write, do you write for a word count, or you just let the story go till, let's say 60,000 words in, you go, oh, okay, I need to start finishing this up, sort of thing.
I think that stress will get in there. My problem is I've got those little demons. The first couple I wrote, this is a job, and finish your job and make your quota every day, like a traffic cop, write your tickets, make your quota. So I would pay attention to the word count. And then as I kept going, I'm like, what's the rush? This is my thing. I'm not answering to a boss. I'm the boss. So right. So I really write by scene at this point, is that, to make sure I can wrap up the scene, or at least get to a point where I can transition to the next day if I'm up against the clock. And I've got, over time you kind of build that regimen. So I, on average, I can probably knock out 600 to 800 words in an hour at this point, or in 30-45 minutes. So I don't really obsess about it as much, because now I'm just, you finally figure out, it's like, I don't have a boss that's going to yell at me because I don't get my writing count in.
You're on your own schedule.
I'm on
Yeah,
my own schedule. Yeah, this is my thing.
yeah. I kind of I have to play the scene out, right? So I have
Mhm.
to write it out, but I can visualize it. I visualize exactly what I want to put in the books. So then I can hammer out uh, 1,000 words maybe a day. Depends how many interviews I'm doing on podcast or what I got going on. Because
Yep.
when I retired a year ago last August for about 6 months, and I'm like, okay, I'm bored.
Yeah, I gotta have
Uh,
something to do.
I got to do something to do. So my wife works for the school district here in Allen. She said, "Why don't you be a monitor on a school bus?" Like, I like
Ooh.
kids, I can hang out. So I'm in the special education program buses. Great little kids. I've actually come up with an idea for a children's book that I'm going to be working on when I'm done with this novel.
That's
Um,
awesome. Yeah.
because you just got to do something. So I try to write when we have a break or whatever. But do you have to work? Do you have to write in like a vacuum or a sterile environment, or can it be ambient noise or white noise or whatever?
It's so weird. I mean, I wrote spoilers. I think it was my third book. Excuse me. I wrote my third book sitting in the cab of my pickup truck. Because I
Are you
had
serious?
switched. Oh yeah, I had switched jobs with different offices, and so the place of work was a little bit different, and so to keep consistency, I'd roll up at the same time to work every day, and I just slide my seat back, put my laptop down, and I just wrote my driver's seat, and I wrote the entire book sitting in my driver's seat and just in that same time period that I cut out for myself every time, and as things change, different assignments covered
Yeah.
give you different kind of living arrangements in different places.
Oh wow.
But yeah, just as long as I keep that time consistent and try to
Mhm.
keep that kind of work ethic,
Right.
I've done it in different places. I mean, I finished my thesis for a master's degree working on it in 4 different countries while I was doing
Oh
it.
wow.
Because at the time it was different, different kind of lifestyle. But yeah, it's just it is funny that you mentioned writing in a vacuum though, because like at home I
Mhm.
can't work at home. I just never have been able to. Like there's this line in my head that says
Uh-huh.
home is where you chill and then work is
Mhm.
where you work.
Mhm.
And I do have 2 little boys at home. We've got two cats that like to run over keyboards. So it's just it's always been like I walk in the door at home and the
They
brain
might
shuts
have a
off.
book in them. They might have a book in
Oh,
them.
they're psycho. Yeah, they're nuts, man. So it's fun. I'd
Yeah.
had a dog for like the last 12 years, and when he went, it was we were gonna take all the time off and not have pets for a while, and that made it about 2 months before they ran into these
That's
two,
tough.
and it was done. Yeah, yeah,
That
but
is tough.
they were a cool addition. Yeah.
If I wrote in my car, my laptop would have ketchup all over it.
That's yeah.
I'd have to put like a tarp and just start typing, hoping the keys match up.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I hope they don't get stuck.
yeah. I'm like, oh wow, that's a lot of A's. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So you've written the book. Are you self published, or do you have a publisher, or how do you do it?
I've done both. I for the first one, that I've talked to some authors that are so patient, like they write that first manuscript and they read it over and they're like, nope. And I
Yep,
apparently am the complete opposite. I
me
wrote
too.
that first manuscript and I read it. I'm like, man, I love it. And so I give it off to a couple of friends. They're like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm like, okay, I need a publisher. And they just go online and you have, as with your first book, you have no idea how shady the publishing industry is. So
Yes,
you know
yes.
you just go on there and all their websites read in different ways and you can filter a little bit out,
Hmm.
but somebody will put up a good facade and make all these deals in the contract and you're like, oh, I got a publisher, it's legit, and you realize very quickly it's not legit.
Right.
After the book comes out, after the cover sucks, there's no marketing whatsoever. But as a first book author, you have zero idea what marketing is.
Hmm.
And I wrote the
Yeah.
book. I'm not a businessman. I'm an artist. So
You ever
you
thought
have
people
no
would just
idea.
buy it? You write a
Yeah,
book, you put it
that's
out there, and people flock to it.
Yeah, that's the plan. I figured my next book I'd
Yeah.
be writing in like Bora Bora while I'm doing
Right.
research. You know,
Yeah.
no, it's not the way it works. So it takes a little. I'm one of those people that it takes a while for things to sink in. So over time I've kind of figured it out. So I did. So I had a couple different publishers of varying quality. Then I wrote a fantasy book, and it really didn't fit with the rest of the crime thrillers I've written. I just
Mhm.
wanted to try it. I wanted to write Die Hard in a medieval castle, more or
Mhm.
less.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I talked to a few independent authors at the different conferences I go to, and I was like, I'm just going to do this one myself. So I already had some good. I got a good beta reading team. Had a guy that does great covers,
Mhm.
good, really good editor. So I did that one myself. I loved it. Um, Following that, I started working on the Thai novel, and found another publisher, and it's one that I researched. I was very happy with the relationship with them, but at the same time, it comes back to being the same thing. It's like, if I got all the tools, why do I need a publisher? When
Mhm.
the marketing doesn't work out, when they're not, the distribution isn't what everybody says it is. It's
Mhm.
and they don't put the energy in that you put the energy into. So I'm very much riding that crest now of
Yeah.
just going do my own way. I've talked to a
Yeah.
couple publishers on Ty Benhoff Part 2 Overmatch, and at every meeting it's like, I can just do this on my own. I understand the marketing and the business side a little bit better
Right.
now.
Yep.
um and I don't know if there's any benefit anymore, unless you're working with one of the big five, that you can
Mhm.
walk into any Books a Million and find your book on the shelf. I don't know if it's worth it anymore to work with a publisher that can't meet that.
Right.
So I'm kind
There's
of
so
kind of
much
working it out.
going on. Yeah, and there's so much help within the author community, anyways. That let's say, hey, I need somebody to design a cover for me. I can reach out to you. There's
Mm.
several people, or I need to look for an editor, or whatever. Right. So there's definitely that in the community now, and there's a lot of talented folks out there too.
Yeah,
Um,
it's amazing. The author
that are
community is amazing. Yeah.
yeah, I found it different than you would think. Having when I got out of the army to corporate America, you put your flak jacket on backwards
Yeah.
because people's coming after you for the backside.
Yep, that is a fact. Yeah,
Man,
yeah. It's one of those things. It's the same thing in law enforcement. It's like, can't think of many different jobs where at least like once a year, usually on the range or something, you're just like, can you
yeah,
believe people pay us for this? And
right,
then
right,
you go to a different assignment in the within the same agency or department, and suddenly your shock plate is in between your shoulder blades,
yeah,
instead of covering your
in front
vitals, right?
yeah, exactly. And you're like, you get those little things of bicycle wearers where you look in the rearview mirror, like, okay, I
Yeah,
need to,
exactly. Where are they coming
yeah,
from?
what's coming after me?
Yeah.
I don't hear it in a report, so that's probably good.
Yeah. Yep.
So you're writing where? How far are you along in your new novel you're writing?
The Overmatch, the second Ty Benhoff novel, that thing is at my editor right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when she's done with it, it's floating around a couple of publishers, but I'm really just kind of, I've had some meetings, and I'm just like, if you guys can't get me what I want, I've got a great cover guy. I've got a great editor. I can do it myself on KDP. And it feels good being an independent
Mm-hmm.
author, because it's all on you. You're not dependent for somebody to figure out keywords or to change the title of your book. Like, I really
Mm-hmm.
liked my publisher for Blood Red Ivory, but one of the first things they did was change my title. I thought it was awesome. It takes place in Zimbabwe. It's just him kind of out by himself, being kind of thrown in the grease by his own management for
Mm-hmm.
various reasons. So he's just on his own, one ranger, caught in the middle of kind of an old school dust up between local park rangers and ivory traders, just
Mm-hmm.
trying to solve a homicide. So I called it East African Blindside. I thought it was, kind of taken from oh man, I can't think of his name right now. Um, Kind of taken from like the old school crime writers take
Mm-hmm.
on. I thought it was fun, East African Blindside, and they're like, nope, we're changing it. I'm like, well, that's your right. You guys know what you're doing, you know. But
You
but
hope
for
that they know
this,
what they're doing.
yeah, for the second one though, I get to. I'm like, nah, I think I'm gonna handle it myself. Yeah, so it's just funny how things change, and you
Yeah.
gotta, that control is really enjoyable when you get to do it yourself.
Yeah. 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 I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, where do you get your inspiration other than work, and how do you build a character?
Usually it's over time it's been, either I'll get an idea for a scene or an idea for a bad guy, or or just like a flash of like, wouldn't this be cool to write about?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Ty was really the first character that I intentionally sketched out. Jackson Cole was basically the opposite of the bad guy. The bad guy came first in the Shattered Circle series, my first couple of novels, just because you got to have, if you're gonna, I would start with the bad guy because the bad guy is where all the trouble comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So Jackson Cole was kind of a response to that foil of the bad guy, just a complete um, pragmatic detective, doesn't believe anything outside his senses, has never heard of the supernatural, and nor does he want to know anything about it. And I'm like, that'd be the perfect guy to go up against a demon. You know,
He's not going to believe what he's thinking, what he's
exactly.
seeing.
Yeah, he gets his badge and a pair of handcuffs and a Glock 45, and that's about all I'm giving you. You don't have some lineage of a grand like druid in your background that suddenly you're magical. You're not. You have zero magic, and you got to figure this out the way any normal person would. And I just had so much fun with that. That came with another book, and yeah. So I don't know, the characters. They come out of whatever the circumstances is that wants me to make this book. Yeah.
That's interesting, especially if you're going to write another book with the characters in it. The question is, in that segment, how much do you go back and introduce the character, right?
Yeah.
You go like how you introduced him in the first book, or that's how much. You don't want somebody they just copy and paste it from the last book. So how much character do you put back in there? Because you want, if they haven't read the first one, you want them to, okay, now I need to figure out more about these folks and how they got to where they're at in this book from the first one.
And I've always struggled with that. I call that like the admin side of the story, like, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's the cliff notes to get you caught up. And one of my favorite writers who, Elmore Leonard's 10 Rules for Writing always says, you skip the parts people won't read. And it's so for me, it's the admin part of the setup of the story. I'd much rather tell through a conversation between characters, or I can't just write a summary to introduce these people. They've got to, the character, you walk into this, my characters have no idea what's going on. They know that they're responding to something or they're caught up with something, but they don't have the information, the omnipresence that, the bad guy's over here getting shifty and shady, and my character's responding to the stimulus around trying to attack the problem.
Yep.
And I don't think my readers should have any more information than my character does. So I try to keep them as much in the dark as my character is, so they can feel the same way, and then balance that with, they also have to know who the bad guy is, and they have to know the bad guy's motivations and all that stuff. So it's always a constant kind of struggle with making my readers hang on and wonder the same way my main characters wonder how this is working out and how they're going to get out of this, while responding to the machinations of the antagonist. It's a tough balance, but I don't want to admin anyone. I don't want to write a summary for anybody,
Yeah, I try to just introduce enough to where this is an interesting person, or the cliff notes. What's kind of highlighted this person? Like the one that I'm bringing more prominent feature in the book. She is Mary. She's a CIA agent, but she's also a trained culinary chef for the CIA.
Oh, nice.
She's an assassin, and how she kills people is by food. She has such an impeccable restaurant, the CIA can place her in any restaurant in the world. And when she kills them or incapacitates them, they can never trace it back to the restaurant, because it's like 2 or 3 days later, and even using the most advanced forensic, it looks natural causes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's what's her, it's kind of her specialty.
Yeah, that's a great one. I mean, and it's so much fun. You can go anywhere with that. Like, there's no place in the world you can't go with that character. I put her in Berlin.
because I like Germany.
I I think, but you say Germany, I'm like, yep, I love I love Germany. But
Yeah.
and as I'm saying, there's no place in the world you can't use her. Automatically, there's a little voice in my head saying you can't use her in London because the only the only place I've ever been where I was like that food was not something I'm ever going to remember was
Heathrow.
London. Yeah,
Was Heathrow.
Yeah. It was Heathrow, and
the best food I've had in London is Heathrow.
yeah. You get out in the city though, it's like, oh, this place looks great, and you're like, wow, that is absolutely lacking in memorability.
Now, all my English friends, I'm quarter English, so don't love you guys.
Yeah. Seriously, I can't wait to go back. King. But yeah. And it wasn't their fault either. I had just spent like time in Czechoslovakia, or not anymore, Czech Republic, and the food there was amazing, and Austria and Germany, and then hang out in London for a couple nights. Like, oh, I should have eaten here first. Yeah,
my wife's German, so it's comfort food.
It's so good. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So excellent. So when's your new book you think is going to be out? When do you got a date?
I'm looking if I finally pull the trigger, make a decision and pull the trigger on just putting it out myself. I'm hoping it's out by April. I got a book conference, Space Coast Books. I do every year, so I'd like to have it available by then. And I think I could probably do it. My cover guy has so much business that he says he can't get to me until like January, February. But he's by then I think I can clear it and get it packaged up pretty good for an April release. But it's that build up to it, trying to figure the marketing out properly this time and get a good launch is.
The launch is the most critical aspect, and I wish I'd have known that in my first book.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I wish somebody would have told me. Or
nobody tells us any of this stuff.
No, because it is critical. So where can people reach out to you and find your books? And I know we linked in through Twitter, so or X, where you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm on X at John Stamp Writer. Same handle for Instagram. The website is johnstampriter.com. I've got a podcast, That's Criminal Podcast. I think you're joining me coming after the turn of the year, I think.
Yes, January.
So that's Criminal with John Stamp. I do a little true crime and talk to that writer life all at the same time. So I'm having a blast doing that. So that's how I started doing that. Like doing different podcasts. Is like, this is so much fun. I'm just going to do my own, So
well, I started this because I didn't know anything. I didn't know crap about it, writing a book or anything. So I said, I might as well talk to people that have either done it or will do it or going to do it or want to do it. And I've gotten so much information that, different writing techniques are, maybe I thought, wow, I'm doing something. What I'm doing is just stupid. Then I find out that maybe not. Right? Other people write almost the same technique or different things. So I do like doing the podcast, and I've met a lot of cool people too, and that's probably the most fun of it is meeting all the cool people.
And it's like you said, that writing community is so supportive. I mean, it's 100% different from like corporate America. It's everybody just wants everybody else to be successful, and it's very rare. I don't remember seeing that in any other aspect of coming around.
No, you probably won't. Because there's millions of readers, so. But your job was one job that somebody else is wanting to do, right?
Oh, yep, that's right.
So you got
somebody else coming,
somebody else younger and wanting your stuff, a little smarter, maybe. So I don't know. Well, John, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I wish you the most success. Happy Thanksgiving coming up.
Yeah.
But folks, go out, check him out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, his website, and check out his podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yes, sir. You have a great day. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.